Offseason is upon us. Offseason in full effect. We got a little offseason activity next week. We got some chatter. We got some dialogue. We got some numbers when it comes to DeMeco Ryans. Let's go inside the locker room. Number one source for Texans daily digital content. I'm Landry Locker. Subscribe, like. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the locker room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey, locker room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk. Yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize every angle's what we really do. We the source. We the pulse of the city too.
All right, so let's play a little numbers with DeMeco Ryans. I have some numbers, just some fun numbers that I think are interesting when it comes to the new head coach of your Houston Texans. Put the comments in, subscribe, like. Number one source, Texans daily digital content. It is the locker room. We're also going to get into, this effing guy just can't help himself. He's always got something to say. Well, the low-hanging fruit still getting picked at no matter what. People talking out of both ends. It is a damn shame. Let's start with the number 6 as talking about DeMeco Ryans. Number 6. 6 head coaches in Texans history. We've had 6. Now, we've had 8 if you want to count interim guys, but we've had 6. Wade Phillips and Romeo Crennel were interim, but as far as like starting the season off, we've had 6 head coaches in Texans history. And let's just kind of go through the guys that have been here. And I want to ask you guys, which of these guys is DeMeco most similar to? And is there like a combination of guys to where you think that DeMeco fits this mold? So we obviously have Dom Capers. We have Coobs, friend of the show. If you missed the interview with Gary Kubiak, go back and check that out. Gary Kubiak hopped in the locker room. Good dude. Always good to talk to Gary. Bill O'Brien, David Culley, Lovie Smith, DeMeco Ryans, yay. So if I was asked to compare who DeMeco Ryans is the closest to, I would say what OO said. And I would say Kubiak. Kubiak would be the guy that is most familiar. He's the guy that he speaks to. They got kind of the same mannerisms. Now, the one thing that DeMeco does have that these guys don't have is he was a very, very good NFL player. None of these other guys were that. But I would say Kubiak, and then maybe you could say a combination of Capers and Lovey in that he had been a successful defensive coordinator before he took the gig. But I would go with Kubiak and then the defensive background if we were talking about who DeMeco had similarities with. So the 6 coaches, that's the first number, and I would agree with OO, and I would say Kubiak. Next number. 6.5. This is the adjusted win-loss total for the Houston Texans. 6.5 is where we're at. It started out at 5.5. It went up to 6.5 after free agency and the draft, and 6.5 is where we're at. I would take the over on this. I would have the 5.5 was a lot easier. I would still take the over in the 6.5 just because there's not going to be any chance that they're laying down. They don't have their draft pick. They've added probably maybe double-digit new starters at this point. They've improved the talent. They got more cap space to work with. They should have a better offensive scheme, although we'll see what Bobby Slowick is. And they have a better head coach that is up to date on today's NFL. So if I were talking, I would take the over 6.5. And it seems like a lot of people are agreeing on that. And let's be honest, we're all drinking the Kool-Aid right now, but it's not like we're saying they're going to make a playoff run. But 6.5, the over, I would agree with y'all. Let's look at, though, the first season win totals of the previously mentioned 6 coaches. And subscribe, like, Locker Room, #1 source for Texans daily digital content. You can hear me Monday through Friday, 10 to 2, Sports Radio 610. And you get to hear a lot of players, coaches, et cetera, on the Odyssey app. Fire up that Odyssey app. It's a 100% thing. Brown Chubby Bear says that he is taking the over. No kidding, Brown. You would take it if it were 10. Let's be real. Shout out to BCB. Go check out his fine work too. BCB, put in the comments where they can peep your fine work and what you do on here, because he'd be grinding his ass off. But first season win totals. So Dom Capers, it says 6. It's actually 4. So let me fix that real quick. Dom Capers was 4. Kubiak was 6. B.O.B. was 9. Coley was 4. And Lovey was 3. So if DeMeco does hit the over, it would be the second highest win total for an opening season for a Texans coach in franchise history. Now, the B.O.B. thing really kind of annoys me because I've heard him say multiple times, and I roll my eyes a lot of things Bill O'Brien says because there's such a gray area when it comes to him winning division titles and all that, that he just kind of hung his hat on it and it was ignored. But Bill O'Brien inherited a 2-win team, but there were a crap ton of injuries in that season, and they won 12 games the year before. So, and most of those core players, a lot of those core players were still here. Now, Arian was kind of on the back end. Andre was on the back end, but the defense, which was one of the strengths, it was still around. So I kind of consider that 9 to be, yeah, it's cool. You went from 2 to 9, but you also had a decent core of guys on the roster. But if Gary Kubiak or if DeMeco Ryans gets 6.5, that makes him second most winningest coach of all time. That's got to mean a little something. Now, if he gets as many as OB did, you might be talking about a coach of the year. 10. Next, number 10. As we go down the numbers, 10. There are 10 former players in the NFL that are currently coaches. 3 of them are in the AFC South. So 3 out of the 10 are in the AFC South. You have DeMeco Ryans, Mike Vrabel, Ron Rivera, Todd Bowles, Dan Campbell, Kevin O'Connell, Doug Peterson, Frank Reich, and Zach Taylor and Dennis Allen had like cups of coffee in the NFL. But I guess you get credit for coffee. So there are 10 players in the NFL that were former NFL coaches. Only 2 of those have been to a Pro Bowl. 2 of them. That is Mike Vrabel went once, I think in 07 or 08, and DeMeco Ryans, who is the only one that has been to multiple Pro Bowls. So DeMeco Ryans is the only head coach in the NFL that has been to the Pro Bowl 2 times. Now, I say all that to ask this. What does player experience mean for a coach? What is the value of DeMeco Ryans having the credibility that comes with being a player? It's obviously not the end-all, be-all, because we've seen guys who are better players than DeMeco Ryans was that ended up being bad coaches. Mike Singletary was a disaster in San Francisco. Just didn't work out for Mike Singletary. But what is the benefit? I think the main benefit is you get instant respect. Now, can you lose that respect? Sure. And I think a lot of that might have happened with Mike Singletary as he got a little bit too intense and kind of started mother effing players and all that. But you get immediate respect, you get immediate credibility, you get immediate relatability when it comes to being a player that's a former coach. It's not the end all be all. I mean, you guys consume media. Sometimes the former players are the worst ones and they sound the most clueless. It doesn't always mean the same thing. That's not always the case. But a lot of times you can't present or teach what comes more natural to you. But you immediately get that respect. It's not like Bill O'Brien or Dom Capers or other guys coming in where you have to earn the respect of the players. You immediately respect DeMeco Ryans, multiple-time team captain, Pro Bowl caliber player. You get that respect immediately. And there are some players who immediately respect the coach no matter what. But when you come in there and you can say, you know, I did this at this level, I did what you're trying to do, you do get some immediate respect. Now, can it be a disadvantage if you're a head coach? It can be, and I've actually heard DeMeco and I've heard other guys talk about this. If you're expecting players to do what you did, especially if you're a really good player. Like Magic Johnson on the Lakers, I think they said that he expected, you know, his point guards to be able to do the stuff he did. Like, not everyone can do that. You can't really teach that type of stuff. So it can be a disadvantage if you're expecting everyone to do what you do. I don't think that that's going to be a concern with DeMeco Ryans. It also kind of excites fans, like from a fan perspective, and this is obviously a channel for fans, maybe players, ownership watch too. But from a fan's perspective, it's good because you can kind of gravitate towards DeMeco Ryans. You immediately feel like you've been through it with DeMeco Ryans. Like even when Kubiak came here, or when B.O.B. came here, and I know they both provided some good times, you didn't feel like you'd gone to battle with them before. Before DeMeco Ryans even, you know, takes the field in Baltimore, you already feel like as a fan, you feel like, man, I've gone to bat with this guy. And that's easy to get behind. And I think that's kind of some of the nostalgia that comes with it. There's immediate respect. Like if DeMeco Ryans came here, like let's say that DeMeco Ryans came here and he had ended up taking the job in Denver. As soon as DeMeco Ryans came here, DeMeco Ryans would be beloved. Like Mark Berman would have been at his doorstep asking him questions about Gary Kubiak and all that type of stuff. Although Berman's going to be retired during football season. So I guess someone else is going to have to do that. But those are the advantages kind of being a former player. It's not the end all be all, but you do get the immediate respect, especially when you're that good of a player, and especially you're that good of a player here. And I don't see how that can be a bad thing. Can it be lost? Yes. His own actions are going to decide how he builds on that. But as far as just like the advantage and the pros of what you have before you have a chance to either expand on it or screw it up, there's no disadvantage in that. It's actually a very, very big advantage that DeMeco Ryans possesses. So that's good. Abel Gonzalez says DeMeco is a great player on and off the field. What do you mean a great player off the field? What does that mean? Proved himself as a DC, so the culture he's bringing is priceless and much needed. Speaking of that swarm, that's the culture right there, swarm. He's talking about that a lot. Lamont says, if we're going to be real about DeMeco history in Houston, it's similar to McCullers. Dude was hurt a lot, but I still love him. He did get hurt. He was up and down, and they ended up choosing Cushing after him. But there's definitely some love, and I don't know how much it actually matters. But it is something that I'm sure that he will try to capitalize on, but I don't think it's going to be the end all be all. I don't think he's like some blowhard. Here's something that annoys me about DeMeco. And I talked about this today. I actually put a little video up on it if you want to go back and check it out. He's that effing guy, man. He's that effing guy. And I think you all have a friend that is that effing guy that just can't give you nothing, man. Whether it's the traditional sports like baseball, football, basketball, whether it's going to the bar and shooting darts or playing Golden Tee or Blitz or, you know, the old arcade games, shooting pool, they just get the job done. and they could just pick up anything and get the job done. Look at DeMeco Ryans taking the first shot for the Houston Rockets. Look at how he pimps this. Dude doesn't even hoop anymore, and look at this. Just walking up to the line.
And a chance to get $5,000 for the Club City Foundation.
No dribble, no nothing. Just going up there and boom. No hesitation. Unbelievable. Nonchalant. No spin, no nerves, no nothing. Now let's go to the Astros game. The Astros, DeMeco Ryans, just going out there to throw a pitch. No, he ain't playing baseball.
Your Houston Texans' new head football coach, DeMeco Ryans. Corey Joke sets up behind the plate. And to strike it
Hate in the corner, man.
DeMeco Ryans tonight.
Nonchalant. Yeah, you know. Played a little ball back in the day. That effing guy. That effing guy. Oh, my goodness. It's ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous. Gotta love him, though. Gotta love DeMeco. So we talked about this a little bit today on the show. Peter King, national media type. He used to get spoon-fed access and information from the Texans. In the Bill O'Brien era and back during that regime, when it came to media relations, Peter King was getting whatever he wanted. And I don't like media stuff can bore a lot of people. I think the most annoying, like some media people are just such blowhards that just like take themselves so serious that it bothers me. But I like to play follow the source and I like to do all that type of stuff. But like bitching about press box food and all that type of stuff. Joe Blue says that DeMeco's probably good at flip cup. You're probably right. Jay says he could probably strike out the A starting lineup. Now you're just kind of being a little bit crazy. But Peter King used to, and if you ever notice, like Peter King was the first one to throw out Jadeveon Clowney isn't a worky bee. And there was also a time when Peter King would get like during COVID. I remember it was real big, and there were a lot of people really pissed off when it came to the access that Peter King got during COVID, because during COVID, reporters were basically chasing their tails. And I will say that it was actually pretty rough because access was limited. Bill O'Brien wasn't giving you much. Jack Easterby, the POS, was doing what he was doing. But for some reason, Peter King got to tour the whole NRG during COVID and do like a whole feature on it, while the local people basically were left grasping for straws. And that's one of the things that I think the new regime has done a really good job at. They've actually done a really excellent job at realizing that the local stuff is what matters, and they got to win back Houston. I think that's how Brooks Cabina broke the DeMeco Ryans story, although people stole it from him afterwards, but he was the first, and that wasn't by mistake. But Peter King used to get all the information. And I think he would be the first to tell you, if you go back and listen to like some of the decisions that were made when it comes to media relations, he was the most outspoken. He was pissed off. She's one of the best in the business and all that. And she was great. And I got along with Amy fine. And she's doing a great job with Amazon. She's been very successful. She's been in multiple spots. So she's doing her thing. But the reason why Peter King was so upset about it is because, I mean, it's quite obvious. I mean, you could see, you can go back and look at his COVID feature. I mean, the dude's getting like a direct tour. He's basically getting to lick the floors and lick the door handles while other media types are trying to figure out, how are we going to cover this squad? How are we going to keep our job? Like, that's the other thing about it. Like, a lot of these folks are getting laid off during COVID, and you have people who are serving the local community who cover this team. It's not just some sort of fallback, and they're grasping for straws. They're stressing out. I mean, they're watching all their coworkers get cut. We're wondering if there's going to be an NFL season. If you remember during COVID, because I didn't think there was going to be a football season, I literally did an Astros postgame show every game during COVID. If you go back and listen, I did an Astros postgame show every day. I went up to the station every day, 75 times. Did the Astros postgame show because we didn't know there was going to be a football season. I volunteered this. No one asked me to do it. I did it on my own. And there were a lot of football people wondering, well, what the hell am I going to do if there's not a season? I'm not able to tell people about access. We already got 2 blowhards that are trying to do this Patriot Way thing. We can't get anything. And then all of a sudden, Peter King just strolls in here and gets to basically get a tour of the facility. You couldn't have given that to McLean. Couldn't have given that. I think Aaron Wilson was there at the time at the Chronicle. Couldn't have given it to him. Aaron Reese of The Athletic. These people cover your squad. And you're giving Peter King, the full tour. So it's no surprise that ever since that regime left, that Peter King has kind of been pissed at the Texans. And let's also be clear, they deserve to be crapped on. I'm one of the guys that have crapped on the most. It was a joke that King, Bill, and Jack were able to do what they wanted to do and what they were able to do. It was a joke. And there have been a lot of things that have been a joke. But some of the stuff that these people are saying, Peter King, you got to be out of your damn mind, man. Peter King said, and I'm not even gonna play. I don't want to do like the copyright start pause, but Peter King, and if you didn't hear it, we talked about it today at noon on the Odyssey app. But Peter King has been nothing but complimentary of the Texans and what they've done with DeMeco Ryans. He's been nothing but complimentary of what they've done with the draft and stuff like that. He has asked questions. But today he criticized, yesterday he criticized, and he had his guy Miles Simmons there who just agrees with everything he says and says yes. And Peter's not going to put anyone up there that's actually going to have an opinion and actually disagree with him. But Peter King says the Texans' decision to fire Lovie Smith was idiocy. And every NFL team should want a head coach that has them playing hard in meaningful games. So which one is it? Like, did they do a good job hiring DeMeco Ryans, or should they have kept Lovie Smith? It drives me crazy because these fake holier-than-thou media types that just feel like they have to grasp the low-hanging fruit and say ridiculous things. Even when they compliment the Texans, they still have this crutch to say stuff like this. Like, if you want to criticize the decision to bring in Jack Easterby, the decision to bring in Bill O'Brien, all that's cool. But the Texans' biggest mistake was that they were such a bleep show that they put themselves in position to where hiring David Culley or Lovie Smith even made an ounce of sense, where you didn't have any draft picks early on in the draft. You had $75 million in dead cap. You had a quarterback who wanted out of town before all the extra stuff happened. That's the mistake they made. So to sit there and now say that they made a mistake firing Lovie Smith and they put Lovie Smith in a lose-lose situation, it's ridiculous. Lovie Smith wasn't going to be a defensive coordinator anywhere else. Lovie Smith wasn't going to be a head coach anywhere else. DeMeco Ryans wasn't going to take this job last year. You weren't shopping with the top candidates. Think about it. Like, if you're a head coach before the 2021 season and you want to take a job, are you going to take one with a quarterback that has 30 sexual assault charges once out of town? You got $75 million in dead cap and you haven't had draft picks early for a long time? No, you're not. So you hire someone. San Francisco did it. It was different GMs. It was a different situation. San Francisco did it with Jim Tomsula and Chip Kelly before they hired Kyle Shanahan, before they got through the mud. So you're telling me that they should have kept Lovie Smith? It's silly. It's silly. And Lamont's saying I'm generalizing media types. I'm not. I'm talking about Peter King specifically. I'm talking about Peter King specifically. And there are specific national media types. We can name them specifically. Stephen A. Smith has grasped the low-hanging fruit a couple of times. Mike Silver does it. I've heard Bomani Jones do it. I've heard there's been a lot of people who criticize the Texans. Miles Simmons does it. There's no generalizations there. There's specifics. I'm specifically talking about Peter King. And I'm specifically talking about the low-hanging fruit that gets grasped for when it comes to talking about the squad. Dan Orlovsky does it. But which one is it? Like, should they have kept Lovie Smith? How excited would people be if Lovie Smith were still here? How excited would they be? I mean, you've got to be kidding me if you're acting like Lovie Smith was like some sort of victim. Lovie Smith was a beneficiary of this situation. Lovie Smith benefited. The Texans being a bleep show is why Lovie Smith was even an option. That's it. It's the same reason that Jim Tomsula was an option in San Francisco. Same reason Chip Kelly got to come back. Lovie Smith was getting his third opportunity in the NFL. So Peter King sitting there and saying that the Texans firing Lovie Smith was idiocy. I think it's idiocy to have that take. And then praise the DeMeco Ryans situation. Like, what are you trying to say? You're telling me every team strives to have a coach that is having them play hard in meaningful games, and then you mentioned Dan Campbell as an example? The hell are you talking about? Who the hell is talking about Dan Campbell? They were to the wire last year. You're talking about the 2 years before that? You're comparing Dan Campbell getting the first opportunity with the rebuilding Detroit Lions to Lovie Smith? Silly, man. Silly. Doesn't make any sense. And they hired DeMeco. They hired the best guy. They hired the most popular guy. So I just don't understand the whole reason for that. The Lovie Smith was a disaster, though. I mean, and if they had been able to get the number one pick or whatever, maybe we'd be saying it was okay. But Lovie, the league had spoken to Lovie. Where's Lovie at right now? No one's hiring Lovie Smith. No one hired David Culley. The travesty is not that Lovie Smith and David Culley were one and done. The travesty is that the Texans were such a shitty run organization that they got to the point where they had to hire David Culley and Lovie Smith, and it wasn't the stupidest thing in the world. Because in any other situation where you have some sort of appeal, that would be the stupidest thing in the world. And that's what they did. So I don't know if Peter King's trying to pander. I don't know. I don't know if it's just like one of his crutches, but he talks out of both ends on that. And it's not too surprising. Subscribe, like, appreciate everyone for riding along. I'll get to some more of the comments. But I asked a question on Twitter. I'm going to put a video out on this tomorrow. So be on the lookout tomorrow morning for this one. Which player do you think will have the breakout season next year for the Texans? And here's and I want it to be, there's two things I want to make clear. It's got to be someone that's returning. So someone that was on the roster last year, and it can't be someone drafted in the first two rounds of last season. So no Jalen Petrie, no Derek Stingley, and no Kenyon Green. Who is going to have the biggest breakout season? Christian Harris seems to be the most popular guy. And Christian Harris can run his ass off. He made some plays last year. Got injured at the start of camp, but I mean, the guy's an absolute freak. Got offered to be an H-back at LSU. Actually went to college on LSU's campus. Went to Alabama. Didn't even play linebacker in high school. He was actually a corner, running back, wide receiver type athlete was what he was on the recruiting stuff, the ATH. And Nick Saban starts his ass every game of his career at linebacker. So he's an absolute freak. I wouldn't include John Mechie either because he was drafted in the first 2 rounds, but I almost look at John Mechie as kind of a rookie. Like I don't know if you can say John Mechie, you can't have a breakout year before you step on the field, right? Like normally you think about taking the next step. So M's asking about Mechie. I would just, let's put Mechie to the side there. Marcus is saying Damian Pierce. I thought Damian was fine last year. I don't know, like breakout. What's breaking out from what he did last year? Talking like 1500. I mean, I think he could possibly be good. So Harris, Tegan Quintariano, who maybe I'm a little bit higher on Quintariano than I should be. It was just a really, really pleasant surprise to see what that guy did, given the fact that all you heard was that he's a blocker, and he looked like a good receiver. And it seems like he works pretty hard. He worked his ass off to get back. I know that Dalton Schultz is the guy that a lot of people think is going to lead the team in receiving, but Quintariano, I mean, you can have 2 tight ends that produce at a decent level. Like if we get, I don't know, 40 catches from Quintariano, some good blocking. Dalton Schultz is an okay blocker. He's improved. They say he's improved in Dallas. But I like Quintariano though. I think Quintariano is going to be nice. I think he's pretty nice. I think he's a nice piece. I think he can be at least, one of those guys that's here for a long time. Not going to be like a Pro Bowl or anything like that, but maybe he emerges as a guy that you feel. Let me put it this way. What does a breakout season look like for Christian Harris? Near the top of the team in tackles, healthy, and consistently making plays. What does a breakout season look like for Quintariano? I would say just a good enough season to where the idea of him potentially being your starting tight end the next year doesn't completely scare you. That would be my idea for Quintariano. So if you think, oh, we might lose Dalton Schultz, it doesn't completely terrify you because you have Quintariano and you feel good about him. The other one is Nico Collins. The Nico Collins thing is interesting because I keep hearing people talk about, well, Nico, he just needs to stay healthy. And, when Nico's healthy, he can do this. And Nico could be the number 1 receiver. Are we sure? 70 catches in 2 years. He's missed games. I know that he hasn't had a very good quarterback. So I understand that there are quarterback situation. There's a questionable quarterback situation with him. But are we positive that Nico Collins is really, what is Nico Collins? I'm looking at the other guys that they've brought in, even like Noah Brown, Woods, Hutchinson, all these other guys. And I just don't look at Nico Collins and say he can be a number 1 guy. He's a good kid. He works his ass off, but I'm not on this like Nico Collins can be this type of train. Sometimes I think when you get injured, I think your value and the way in which you're talked about can go into like actually people hyping you up a little bit more to where they're talking about, he can be this, just because it's out of sight, out of mind. And we are drinking Kool-Aid. It is optimism time. I don't really see that. Darwin says that Collins is not him. Brown Chubby Bear says, I've lost faith in Collins. I think Xavier could take his job. I don't know if that might be too much on Hutch, but there could be some opportunity because he hasn't stayed healthy. Nico, I think Noah Brown's the guy to watch. I don't know why I'm buying this Noah Brown hype so much. I just think I like Hutchinson and I like Noah Brown. Nico's going to have to. I mean, he's going to come in shape. He's going to be doing that work. He's going to be putting in that work. I'm just not really as high on him as some people might be. Tyler Olson says the 713 connection is going to be sick. I guess I heard Louis Riddick say that he thinks that's going to be one of CJ Stroud's main receivers, Tank Dell. We shall see. I know that we've talked a lot about size. I mean, he's 30 pounds and 2 inches shorter than Bryce Young. I mean, I know I've defended someone that's for months that is a smaller guy, but Brandon Scott put it in an interesting way. They wouldn't even wrestle in the same weight class. That's going to be a Bobby Slowick thing. Rick asks, he says, howdy. Looking forward to seeing CJ and the rest of the rookies mixing with the vets. Want to see how long it takes CJ to get his timing down with receivers. I mean, that's probably an in-season thing even. So I don't know that we're ever – and the other thing is it's a new system for him. So there's going to be some growing pains. As the thumbnail says, we talk about the DeMeco Ryans growing pains. But there's going to be some growing pains with CJ Stroud as well. Who do you consider our top players in franchise history? JJ, Andre, Arian Foster, Dwayne Brown, Nuke Hopkins, I guess Jonathan Joseph, although I don't know that I would put JJo in the Ring of Honor. I don't think I'm gonna go that far. I mean, that's a short list. Deshaun Watson. Yes, sorry. I know that it's not the most popular thing to say, but yes, Deshaun Watson. But yeah, that would just be like a little list off the top of the dome. Lamont's got a couple. He says he feels no one wants to say the Texans could be freaking good this year. Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be the most surprising thing if you see the Texans, win 9 or 10 games like the Giants did last year. It's really just going to depend on the quarterback. Which national media could get Casario's ear? I don't think he's really built like that. I don't think Casario's built like that. If I was gonna I guess you would have to go Albert Breer, but I don't think it would be like a conniving, planted type of thing like B.O.B. I think it could be like a general thought process where Albert Breer can come to his own conclusions. I don't think there's any sneaky ass Jack Easterby B.O.B. stuff where they're saying Jadeveon Clowney doesn't work hard and he's a lazy bum. Not my words, theirs. I was a Clowney guy. But I don't think Casario's gonna, connivingly plant something. Adam asks, says he watched Peter King on YouTube after the draft. He didn't know the names of the first round picks. He said he never heard of FAU before the Chiefs drafted him. Yeah, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. Look, Peter King's a legend. He's on the Mount Rushmore of NFL reporters. And he doesn't have to know all the first rounders' names at this point. But I do think it's irresponsible to just say stupid stuff like the Lovie Smith thing. I don't expect Peter King to know the draft top to bottom. He writes his good feature. He writes his one column a week where he acts like he basically cured cancer every time he gets it. Go look at the dramatic unveiling of his Football Morning in America. It's 5:00 in Switzerland and Football Morning in America is out. Gets good access. He doesn't get it here though, man. He gets some interviews and he gets some features, but he doesn't get it like he used to. He's not getting the VIP tour during COVID like he used to. Rick Smith and Bill O'Brien and Mike Vrabel was a great combo. It all went to hell when broken up. I don't know that Mike Vrabel was great here. The defense sucked. He was the defensive coordinator for 1 year. There were injuries. It was one of the worst defenses in the league. He was a linebacker coach. So we assumed, me and Lopez talked often that, he might end up being a better head coach than coordinator. But I mean, as far as being a coordinator here, I don't know that it was a great duo. I think that might be kind of a little bit of revisionist history. Rick asks, and keep the comments coming. Subscribe, like when you roll out. Lovey and Coley both walked away with smiles and enough money to go fishing for the rest of their lives. David Coley's the happiest SOB right now. I don't know what Lovey Smith's doing. I don't feel like he's a happy guy at all. He's a grumpy guy. Texas boss, do you think Thomas Booker gets cut? Yeah, there's a good chance. They've definitely added some guys there. I don't know how much they like Thomas Booker. I don't know what Thomas Booker's capable of. I always give rookies the first offseason just to see kind of how they come back and how they look. And quite frankly, coming back and looking good might not really matter in the big scheme of things, especially when you're day 3 draft pick. Sometimes it's just not there, and there's a reason you went there. And sometimes guys come in with the body transformation and they just completely take the next step. Brevin Jordan came in looking great last year, and he was a healthy scratch. You had Nico the same. He couldn't stay healthy. But I am interested to see what Booker has. I know he was at the press conference, the DeMeco press conference, but there's a lot more traffic in his area than you're used to. Darwin asked, how small is Tank? He's 5'8", 160. We're making a big deal about Bryce Young being 5'11", 190. Tank Dell is 5'8", 160. That's pretty small, but we'll see what happens. Everyone seems to be pretty high on him, and I guess CJ likes him as well. Abel asking Jonathan Grenard. That's a good question. He had a good year 2 years ago. It's kind of the same story with him and Nico Collins, where you're talking about the exact same things. And we talked to Grenard about it, and we talked to Nico about it. And it's going to be the same exact thing this year. I'm intrigued to see how DeMeco uses his weapons along that front seven. Will Anderson's probably going to be the focal point. How's he going to use Dylan Thornton? How's he going to use Rankins and Collins on the D-line? Jerry Hughes, Jonathan Grenard. There's a chance, if these guys are used right, and you're able to maybe use Jerry Hughes in the right situations and put these rookies in the right situations, there's a chance this could be a sneaky good front seven. I think the secondary is already really good, but the front seven will be interesting, and it'll be interesting to see how he uses the players. Because Jerry Hughes last year, you remember that first game and the start of the season, Jerry Hughes was playing ridiculously well. And then eventually, when you're that age, you kind of wear down. And when you don't have any help, you kind of wear down as well. But I think when you actually start talking about what they have on the D line and what they could do and what DeMeco could maybe do, it could end up being a pretty damn sneaky D line. Very sneaky. And if Grenard stays healthy, I mean, he's got some talent, and he hasn't had this much around him in his career. So, Jonathan Grenard's been on some pretty crappy teams, and now this is probably going to be the best, regardless of how they are. And again, we're comparing, the worst team in the league the last 2 years to where we are right now. But some pretty good talent. BCB, I know Tank is small, but he isn't going to have 320-pound D linemen coming after him like a QB would. Keep him in the slot. He isn't built to beat press on the outside. He can be a real threat. Okay. I mean, I feel like quarterbacks are more protected. Wide receivers are protected, but 5'8", 160 just going across the middle in an NFL game, I hope Tank's going to be good. He's definitely a return guy. There's no doubt about that. Derek says Wes Welker was 5'9", 185. Look, they're not built alike. I know that 5'8", 160. Wes, and I used to play a little ball with Wes back in the day. Wes is not built like that. That's not to say that he can't end up being that, but Wes was a pretty thick 5'9", 185. The real way that, like, if you look at Tank Dell, and I'm sure most of y'all will go out to practice or something, just look at his legs. Like he is a little guy. But he did lead the nation in receiving last year, or his second. So we'll see. But those guys, yeah, I would not compare those body types at all. Wes was really, really thick. I appreciate everyone for coming through. I love you all. I always enjoy doing this. We do it daily. No days off. Going to be on the air tomorrow from 10 to 2. We got some fun stuff planned. Going to have a video dropping in the morning talking about the breakout guys that we just discussed. Appreciate everyone for rolling through. Subscribe, like, let's hang. Going to be getting some players on pretty soon and keep bringing that content. It's the off season, but the fun does not stop. Talk to you tomorrow on the air. Talk to you tomorrow on here. Appreciate everybody. Friday tomorrow, best day of the week. And remember, no matter what happens with the Texans, when it comes to it, we're all in this together. Appreciate you guys.
Every angle's what we really do. We the source, we the pulse of the city too. Landlocked, got the game in the headlock. Localized every time, can't stop.